Hello, my friends. It is that week now. Michigan and Ohio State will play on Saturday. We are, of course, here to talk about Michigan's ninth win of the season, 45-20 win at Maryland to set up a potential, and I'll go as far as to say a surefire. You win next week against Ohio State, you are in the college football playoff. I'm very comfortable saying that, but we're going to talk about what led to that. We're going to talk about this team finding a way to keep all of its goals still ahead of them over these last 5 weeks. And tonight, I mean, Ryan, so often, of course, here with Ryan Van Bergen, former Michigan defensive lineman, as he joins us every week here on our post-game show. Ryan, every year this week comes around and the word trap game gets thrown around. And of course, it's a natural look ahead spot, but Michigan's had years where, like this year, you blow out Maryland. Last year, you blew out Northwestern. The two best teams you've probably ever had in program history, 2022, 2023. They have nail biters the week before Ohio State. But you usually go into this week with three goals, and it's win, stay as healthy as you can, and win by as much as you can to get these guys out of the game. And, there were a few guys banged up in this game. It looks like you're going to be without Max Bredesen. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, in a game, we've been waiting for a mature, complete four-quarter response. And the closest we had gotten to that was maybe the end of that Washington game. But from the get-go, offense, defense, Michigan hammered these guys, and you set up a week now where a very young Michigan team that has found a way to win 9 games has a chance to play for everything next week.
The game that you saw today was what I think we all thought that was they were capable of this game maybe earlier this season, and with all their star players or so many star players down, I think it's even more surprising to see the polished performance that you saw today, and encourages you for what we can do in the biggest battle of the year this upcoming weekend. But in general, I think that you see a team that has, I think, 0 turnovers, I think is what we finished with. You see a team that no interceptions after a 5 turnover game in Wrigley Field last weekend. The bounce back is real. And the bounce back is happening with team captains going to the sideline, young guys having to step in. I thought you saw Bryce Underwood play his most poised and composed game in its totality throughout the entirety of the 4 quarters today. But in general, this team's ceiling, I think, was a huge question mark for everybody coming in, including the Michigan coaching staff. And as we've talked throughout the season, I think we've seen glimpses of what the ceiling could be, but I do think we have some guys that are starting to peak. We'll break it down by position, but there was a passing game today. There was a running game that was damaged but successful. There was a defense that was doing a lot of positive things on that side of the ball. And in general, and in all 4 quarters, I think it's the most complete game, as you said, that we've played. And you kind of needed that going into this week to feel like you've got some hope and some optimism, because I'm sure we're going to be underdogs, but it is our stadium, and this team played its best game of football. So there's not much more you can ask for than that.
That is all you could ask for. And the other thing too is that it's a game between, I think by average age, the 2 youngest teams in the Big Ten. Michigan is the youngest team in the Big Ten, but that was, like I said before, like a performance that is a mature step forward for them. These guys have played 11 games now. They played a lot of these teams much closer than they've needed to throughout the year. But when it was time to put your foot on the gas and get your starters out of the game, they found a way to put one more drive together and make sure that happens and get out of there with a pretty convincing victory. I mean, we'll talk opening drive defense and backup defense and all of that later on. But for 4 quarters, this team played the 4 best quarters of football it has all year sequentially. And that's exciting because we all know what next week is now. We have a super chat here from our guy, Ramez Herrick, who says, what are you hearing? None from Sherrone or personal feeling / guest for Ernest, Cole, Jordan, and Max. Did you see the weather forecast? Okay, there's a lot here. I'll start with weather forecast. A little early, a week out, state of Michigan. We know how quickly things can change. Forecast we saw earlier today, high 30s, potential snow flurries with some wind on Saturday. That would be huge for Michigan's chances, I think, and throwing it back to that game from 2021. Laundry list of injuries today. So Ernest Hausman, Samaj Morgan stayed back. It was not injury related. I think Sherrone said working through something after the game, personal things. I'm not 100% sure there. Cole Sullivan was available today. Jordan Marshall was allegedly available today. Both those guys warmed up and were not, or Cole Sullivan was not on the injury report. And Max Bredesen, I hate to say it, but guys in the walking boot and on crutches in the second half of that game. We talk about wanting to stay healthy, and you lose a big part of your identity if that guy's not out there. But so much of the story of this season has been these young guys stepping up into bigger roles and maybe having to take on a little more than anyone planned for. And that's why you've gotten yourself to this point. So, yeah, it sucks. I feel particularly bad for Max. I don't know anything more. I haven't seen, obviously didn't travel, wasn't at the press conference. So I don't know what was said after the fact, but yeah, we'll see how some of these things progress throughout the week. But for a guy like Max in particular, it doesn't look well. Ryan, before we move on, do you want to just kind of speak to the impact that guy has and why he is considered such an important part of this team and its culture?
The walking boot is not a good sign. I would say it's probably unlikely you see him play the next game for what it's worth. But the impact that he has on the team, the influence that he has on the team, I think shows through. There's times where I feel like the defense feels like they're playing like Max Bredesen plays football. And that's a tip of the cap to him and the way he plays the game. And as a player myself, there's a certain level of respect that you develop for guys in the manner in which they go about their business. And the way Max Bredesen goes about his business, there's not a guy that's laced up the cleats that would say they don't have a level of respect. Even if you don't like Michigan football, you have a layer of respect for Max Bredesen. So what I will say is that I don't think it's as detrimental to not have him on the field Saturday against the Ohio State Buckeyes as someone might think. I've talked on this podcast before that I think there's times that we are overly tendency related to where he's on the field and some of the different motions he does lead you to the football. There's a chance that having him not on the field works to our benefit in terms of schematics and stuff like that. You know, I also think back to, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, I believe, but Zach Zinter and him being a team captain and going down in the third quarter and how that team rallied behind that injury and maybe even performed better offensively somehow with him off the field. So although it's going to be someone that we miss, I think it's going to be something that ultimately doesn't hurt us too bad for this game. But you better believe I know he'll be there leadership-wise, and there'll be some fire that comes from him. He will impact the game in some way.
Yeah, and it's tough too. Like, we'll see what happens with Rod Moore this week. I really don't have any idea other than rumblings of what's going on with Ernest Hausman. It's a lot of leadership that might not be on the field, but last year, think about the guys that were out of that game. I still, in a way, and I don't want to steer it towards this, or I don't want this to come off as a hot take, but there's a shot on the Big Ten Network broadcast where an injured Max Bredesen is kind of hugging Bryce Underwood on the sideline. And maybe that's, the picture that's burned in my mind is that maybe that is a pseudo passing of the baton where, if they're going to find a way to win this game next weekend, it's going to be because a lot of young guys had a hand in it. And Bryce Underwood is kind of the de facto face of this team right now. But we will talk about everything that happened in this game. Of course, like we said, Ryan's here as he is every week on behalf of Blue Lion Fitness. Noon game next week. Or are we thinking we'll set up live afterwards there?
Absolutely. I expect to be celebrating a victory live at Blue Lion Fitness, 2875 West Liberty.
Yeah, well, Thanksgiving this week. We've talked about classes and stuff there. Anything of note in these next couple days that our folks need to stop by and check out?
We now at our new location have some more space for inventory. So we have new apparel that's in. I'm wearing one of the new Blue Lion Fitness hats. If you may not be attuned to coming to Blue Lion yourself, maybe your loved one, a spouse, someone that you care about could use some fitness or maybe just some gear. So if you want to stop in, take a look at what the building looks like, maybe walk away with a gift card or some apparel, we finally have some in stock. So stop on by and get some gear if you're not going to come get a workout.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. We are also brought to you tonight by our friends over at BRUNT Workwear. Get $10 off your first order over there using the promo code Wolverine. I didn't travel for this game, and typically when I don't travel, I tend to kill time during the day, and 4:00 start today, a little more time to kill, doing some yard work outside, picking some, doing the last bit of fall cleanup here. Best believe I had my BRUNT Workwear boots on when I was out there. So they're great. They were broken in the second that I wore them. Super happy with the product and everything that those guys do over there. So use that promo code Wolverine for $10 off your first order over at bruntworkwear.com or head to bruntworkwear.com/Wolverine. And thank you guys for your support of the Michigan postgame podcast that we do every week here on the Wolverine. Well, all right. I want to start on offense with this one because, like we said before, this, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the most, CMU game notwithstanding, the most complete effort they've had so far. They find a way to rush for over 200 yards despite being down to running backs 3 through 6 on the depth chart. And a lot of people, and listen, I've never sat here and argued that Michigan should be a front runner for the Joe Moore Award. It should really even be considered for it, what have you. But a game like today, where you are down to and have been down to 3 redshirt freshmen starting on the offensive line, and you're down Justice Haynes, you're down Jordan Marshall. I think Jasper Parker at some point in this game even gets hurt. You got guys like Bryson Kuzdal out there running for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Tomaso Mira late in the game, 8 carries for 71 yards to kind of seal this thing out with over 5 minutes left. This is kind of an all hands on deck situation when it came to their run game. And make no mistake about it. Maryland is not the Ohio State defense that Michigan will see next week, but it was a group that's allowed itself to get run on throughout the year. And not only did Michigan oblige in that regard, when the game was still somewhat in doubt, they were throwing the ball around as well. And no turnovers today. 12 for 14 on third downs. That's incredibly impressive. They hit him for 6.1 yards per play. Underwood throws for 215 yards and the 2 touchdowns. Just a darn good, clean day at the office.
A great day at the office and a balanced day at the office was the thing that I kept saying to myself as I was watching the game unfold. The first down play calling has been something that I feel very frustrated with, have felt very frustrated with throughout the season, that we are so run heavy and it just sets us up for the next down and 2nd and 8s and then the 3rd and 7s. I thought today you saw a lot of play action pass. I thought we may have even been more pass heavy on first down than we were run, even, as we got into the later part of the game. So I thought that was awesome. It's counterintuitive, but I feel that some of the injuries and Samaj Morgan not traveling for whatever reason that was, and the running backs being down, so you don't feel as confident just handing to Justice Haynes and he's going to get you your 4 yards. I feel like it stressed Chip Lindsey and stretched him. And however the offensive play calling is being handled, him, Sherrone Moore, Grant Newsom, the O-line coach, I feel like they've had to be more creative, be less predictable, and in turn, it's created a more effective and efficient offense. It's diverse by default. And I think you're seeing, Andrew Marsh, just another fantastic game for him. He's really emerged in these last 5 games as maybe the best receiver in the Big Ten. I said it. I think that you see Zach Marshall at tight end. How many targets did the tight ends get today? We had a game after watching, sorry, I'm on a rant, but after watching a game 3 weeks ago where there were 0 targets to tight ends, this game there wasn't a quarter where we didn't target a tight end. And it was successful. It moved the ball down the field. So I'm really excited about how the offense performed today. They were efficient, 12 for 14 on third down. As you said, those third downs were short third downs, a lot of them. If you check what they were like chain-wise, they were 3rd and 2s, they were 3rd and 3s. We love that down and distance. So as much as I'm disappointed, I would love to have Justice Haynes back and some of these guys back, but I think it may work to our benefit in terms of schematically what Chip Lindsey is having to do in order to feel like he can move the football. So a great day at the office for the offense. And how much have we been able to say that this year?
We were so close last week. Like if the fourth quarter doesn't happen again, you can't say, well, if you take this out and this happens instead, because that's a hypothetical. What happened last week happened. But, for 7 out of the last 8 quarters, particularly in the passing game, we've seen Bryce Underwood play a more composed game, and he's not. I mean, listen, he's got a little bit of that gunslinger, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen thing in him where he might fall in love with his own stuff and almost turn over the football or have a bad turnover when his technique sort of goes away from him. But something that's so critical about this Andrew Marsh breakout in particular is that, it is legitimate. You say argue, best receiver in the Big Ten. The numbers back that up since October 1st. Now, again, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate were banged up today, but that's going to be like all the attention is going to be on those two guys in these pregame shows next week. Andrew Marsh has been incredible, and particularly on his touchdown on that ball that goes to the right corner. I don't think and mind you, he's only, I think, 6 feet tall, maybe a little less than that, maybe a little more than that. I don't know, but he makes a play on the football on a dime from Bryce Underwood that I feel like we haven't seen a Michigan wide receiver make since Nico Collins in terms of tracking the ball over his shoulder for a touchdown like that. What his breakout does for you is now these defenses have to send these, more resources to slowing him down, or maybe not. He seems to be wide open all the time, but you see targets for the tight ends today. You see Donovan McCulley with a couple chances to make plays. Channing Goodwin got out there, threw some blocks in there and had a couple of catches. The connection that these two guys have is opening up this offense, even on a day where, you're down to, like I said, your number 3 through number 6 running backs here. So just talk about, I guess, since the bye week, turnovers notwithstanding, and maybe more so honed in on this game, like what are we seeing from Bryce Underwood now where doesn't quite feel like a freshman, except for when he does?
I feel like there's been fair criticism of Bryce Underwood through his growing pains, you'll call him, of his freshman year. But today specifically, I thought he looked so poised and he seems like he's in control. The game's slowing down for him just a little bit. And that's all he needed was just a little bit of the clock to slow down. I feel like watching him, even today, he had a very early throw. One of his first incompletions was a sailed ball that should have been an interception, which would have turned the tide of the game around at that moment. And that sailed ball was probably his only really bad ball of the day. But it was just a millisecond rushed, and that millisecond of rush put the ball just a little bit too high, and there was no one in front of him. Those are the mistakes that he makes, and it's cost us. And when it has cost us, and it will cost us again Saturday if we get those, but he's done so much better job mitigating those. I feel like the bullet passes he used to have on the short throws, those are gone. You don't see those anymore. He's hitting everything with touch. Made a couple reads today that probably weren't the best reads, but in general, I think he's just executing the offense. And that's something that we talked about, or maybe week 1, that was one of my biggest concerns with him is we keep, even Biff Poggi says, Batman has his cape on, and we keep expecting him to do something super power wise. We don't need you to do superpower things. There's times where, in the pocket, the first read's not there and you scramble around, you keep your eyes downfield. We convert on a play that maybe another quarter, maybe Davis Warren doesn't get us there, but Bryce Underwood does, and that's what he brings to the game. But there's times where I feel like he tries to throw the whole team on his back and go get that first down or go get that touchdown. He had one today where he almost dove for the end zone and almost fumbled. Those types of things are going away, and he's getting the ball to Andrew Marsh, who can go score that touchdown, or he's getting the ball to someone else that can advance and get us that first down. And I feel like that, to me, is his level of growth. He's learning how to be a distributor. He's learning how to do that on time and in rhythm. And then when the time calls for it, put the cape on. But for the rest of the time, just be operational and go about your business. And that's where I think I see Bryce has really developed.
Our guy Daniel Schutz wants to talk some offensive line. He says, why do we not play gap scheme? Love you guys.
I think you're going to see gap scheme. You change scheme depending on what you're playing and who you go against. To me, gap scheme typically is when you feel like you don't have the size to get movement, so you want angles or guys are going to get penetration. Team like Rutgers and their defensive line are probably not the heaviest. I don't know what they were across the line, but if you're getting movement without the gap scheme, you're going to do a lot more moving of your offensive line to try to initiate gap scheme blocking. So, to me, I think that's why you probably didn't see much of it today. But I know it exists in. I hope that's one thing that I'm excited for Ohio State, because we have been a little vanilla in the schematics of our run game. I hope we open it up a little bit and change up the run and blocking that we have for Ohio State, because I know we have it on the play sheet, but it wasn't run today. But I think it's just because it wasn't favorable for us.
Sorry, I thought we had another super chat and then I clicked out of it, but it was just Daniel. Thank you for the question, Daniel. Anything else on offense? I feel like I'm going to run through a few more of the stats here. Over 400 yards again, 443 yards of offense. I think they were on pace for almost 500 at or near halftime. We talked about the balance, 215 pass yards, 228 rush yards. Talked about the third downs, 12 for 14. That's really good stuff there. They ran 73 plays, no turnovers today. They outpossessed Maryland 35-34 to 24-26. Any other takeaways on offense before we hand out some game balls?
You got to mention the offensive line and what the offensive line, I feel like, has been able to do considering where we were at the beginning of the season. I feel like the offensive line, Bryce Underwood and the receiving and passing game, I feel like can have these gigantic spikes, and it's quite the roller coaster. But I think the offensive line has just been this steady 3 steps forward, half step back the whole season. And Frazier out at left tackle looks like a vet. He seems like he belongs there. Crippen has been holding it down at center, and I feel like he's been doing a better job. Sprague has always been a good run blocking tackle. In pass pro, that's one of my biggest concerns going into the Ohio State game is their edge rush versus our tackles and how we hold up there. But in general, I thought that today, arguably the best and most complete offensive line performance, which then turns into the offensive performance that you have. But I don't think there were any penalties on the offense, if I'm not mistaken. No turnovers, converting on third down. Offensive line across the board is going to grade well this game, and they needed to, and hopefully it carries over.
I think there was one false start on Blake Frazier, but of the 4 penalties I think that they had, I think that was it. The other 2 were offsides, and I forget what the fourth one was. But your average fan has a good point here. He says the O-line got better throughout the year because they started playing the right guys, in my opinion. You'd have a hard time convincing me otherwise. I think it's fair to question maybe their process, because that's 2 years in a row where you didn't start the best center. You weren't starting the best right tackle last year. This year you had guard injuries, and then Jake Gardner is the 4th guy, but now he gets inserted in the lineup, and there's the block today, I think, on Kuzdal's 2nd touchdown where you could forgive me for thinking it was Zach Zinner. The play was so well executed. So Frazier's been steady at left tackle. Sprague has been sort of your consistent guy. But yeah, I think that it's fair to question process and what it took them to get there. But they're here now. So you'll take that, in my opinion. Ryan, I'll let you go first with your game ball.
My game ball goes to Andrew Marsh. I feel like he's a guy that is just continuing to emerge. And usually you have an emerging game and then you come down. The guy has been consistently on fire, and just another solid performance today.
I'll give mine to Bryson Kuzdal, the Forest Hills alum, the Ada, Michigan native. We love our guys on the west side of the state. Big Wolverine contingent. Fort contingent, I should say, on the west side of the state. So shout out you guys. 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'll give him the nod today. He's got some juice to his game. We didn't really break it down, but he could play. If he's got to play next week, I think you feel all right with him getting a couple carries, as long as he's not getting all the carries, because Jordan Marshall is playing. Michigan go blue 1, 2, 3, 4. says, why do we never throw with Jaden Davis in? Shaking my head. Well, first off, just glad to see a backup quarterback in there in a blowout regardless. It's been a while since Michigan got to do that. Secondly, there's really, I'm trying to be nice about it. There's really no developmental upside to them letting him throw in a game because I don't think he throws a very good football. And he's sort of the backup quarterback by, again, trying to be nice, sort of the backup quarterback by default, given the injuries that they've had with their veteran guys. So just hand it off and get out of there. I know we all want to know what's in the mystery box, but that's what I'm seeing out there. Do you have any strong thoughts on not letting the backup quarterback throw? I think if you had a veteran and Bryce is the backup, then you're getting that guy experience, but I just don't know what the upside of it is.
I agree. If you needed to develop Jaden Davis a little bit, then maybe, but I also think today was a rarity. We haven't had very many of these opportunities where ahead by enough and the shoulder pads can come unstrapped. So I'm not against him not getting game throwing reps. I know what you want. You want him to get experience, but I just don't see that as appropriate with what we've had offensively this year.
Why is the talk about Jaden Davis's throwing attempts and not Tomas O'Meara's 71 yards rushing? That guy doesn't, if you're throwing the ball around, that guy doesn't get the chance to put some stuff on tape. So shout out to him. I want to get into Michigan's defensive performance. We'll start with a super chat from 1034 Jose, who says, did today's game show Michigan's defense is ready for Ohio State's tempo and wide receiver talent?
I think Michigan's going to be challenged by Ohio State's wide receiver room, just like any other defense. But what I will say is I feel like in terms of prep games for the Ohio State game, the athletes aren't the same. Let's also give credit a little bit to Maryland. Their quarterback is one of the top 54 prospects, I think, in his class. He was one of the best quarterbacks coming out. So they have a stud at quarterback, and they've got some guys at receiver. Schematically, they seem a little bit like Ohio State in what they want to run against you. So I think in preparation for this game, that was great. I think defensively, we had some lapses today that would definitely be concerning. But with that being said, I also like the idea of not giving up underneath stuff, in the high red zone and challenging some of these throws to be made. I think you might get bit in the butt if you do it again against Ohio State, but show Ohio State. Do you think they're going to watch this game's film? Absolutely. So what are they going to see when they watch us cover in our zones? Damn, they play shallow, they play tight. We can beat them over the top. Great. Throw it over the top next week, and let's see what kind of preparatory things we've done, in the chess game, that is scheme. So I do think it prepared us slightly for what they're doing. The tempo worries me just a little bit because there's times where I feel like tempo has gotten us and it gets everybody at certain times. Just wonder what side of the bed did you wake up on and are you ready for the tempo? But I got to believe it's always better to have tempo like prep before you go into a game with it. So I got to believe they'll be ready for it. Michigan, I think, is going to provide, and we can talk more about this, but Michigan is going to provide Ohio State their greatest challenge of the season. And I think that's more important to me than is Ohio State going to challenge the defense? Of course they are. But Ohio State's also going to be as challenged as they've ever been to move the ball. I'm wondering how they respond in that situation.
It's good on good. And hey, they all, Ohio State, not to look ahead. Well, there's no looking ahead now. It's only Ohio State. They've run the ball pretty well lately. They ran for 254 yards today. Hey, but just keep doing that. See, it works. Just keep running the football. You almost did it last year. You almost got it last year, but just keep doing it. Try again. Michigan GoBlue 1234 asks, if we beat Ohio State, are we in the playoffs? I would have to think, and again, some people don't like when I say this, the college football playoff now is, I just think, a really expensive reality television show that ESPN tries to program. And if they can justify putting Michigan in, which a Michigan win over Ohio State would give them double-digit wins, it would give them a better win than anyone else in college football has. I'd have to think that essentially punches your ticket. To make a Big Ten championship game, Oregon probably has to lose to Washington, but I know there's all this hand wringing and stuff. They're not going to be the amount of 10-win teams that you think there are next weekend. And I think that no matter what happens, 10-2 Michigan with a win over number 1 Ohio State, that should punch your playoff ticket. You have any thoughts on that?
If the team that wins Saturday doesn't go into the college football playoff, then I have no idea what the hell we're doing with the college football playoff. It's not like Michigan is a 5-win team in trying to spoil their season. Michigan's last loss was in California and was in September or something. And since then, there's been some close ones, but they've been undefeated. And if you beat the number 1 team as whatever we're going to be ranked next week, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Michigan would be in the playoff. I'm not going to do anything wild or crazy, but I am 100% certain.
I love the confidence. I feel the same way. So much talk has been what the stakes of that game are now. I mean, for Michigan, this game it's different, but it's your season again. Like, this is the one you define yourself by. And we'll get to more Ohio State talk in a little bit. I want to talk about Michigan, their defensive performance in this game. Maryland gets 347 yards. Malik Washington goes 19 for 39 for 210, a touchdown and interception. The backup comes in, throws for 66 yards. That was against the 3rd and 4th string defense, but another strong game on run defense, 25 carries for 71 yards. Maryland hasn't run the ball at all this year, really at all. So to hold them to that total is about what I expected there. You talk about things that maybe you worry about against Ohio State. There's still kind of these shots down the field or these jump balls or 50-50 balls that Michigan is susceptible to, in addition to some of the double moves and things like that. Just in this game, I thought that they, outside of the opening drive, which was just kind of lackadaisical and what we've seen on some of these opening drives this year, Maryland struggled to do anything else the rest of the game. And it gets a touchdown on the board late against your backups. Then Michigan just runs the clock out. They never have to see the field again. So 3 sacks this week. You had the interception from Mason Curtis, a little more disruptive than last week in the counting numbers department, but no less dominant on a down-to-down basis.
A great day at the offense for the defense. And the most exciting thing that I feel like I've said on the podcast this year is that both the offense and the defense had great days at the office. And we haven't said that once for the entirety of the season. And it's exciting that they were able to get a compliment, them being the defense, because I feel like the defense has had some really good days at the office. Were there some things that you'd want to clean up? Absolutely. But I, as a person that has a little bit more of an aggressive slider when it comes to defense, especially when you're playing someone who may be inferior in terms of the athletes that you're going against, I like tightening the coverage up. I like that you had to make the perfect throw 40 yards downfield to beat us, and they missed. And a lot of people miss that shot. That's a tough shot. That's an exciting shot to take as a quarterback. Do I think Julian Sand misses that shot as much as a quarterback from? No, I don't. I think he probably hits it, but you're not playing Ohio State this week. You're playing Maryland. And I like that our defensive game plan seemed adjusted for Maryland. Jayshon Barham had a fantastic game. The thing that if I'm going to pick across what I thought was frustrating is I feel like there's a lot of 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 7s that Wink Martindale's bringing 6 in a zone pressure, bringing 5 in a zone pressure. And it's just costing us because no one's getting within the halo of the quarterback, and they're catching crossing routes with room to run. The sack that we did have was just a straight 4-man rush with no twists, no games, no nothing. So one thing that I thought would benefit us more in next weekend's game is to be a little bit more 4-man rush, run your games with 4-man, do your twist, your TE stunts, your NT stunts, and see if they can keep up with that and dedicate 7 or 6 to coverage and see if we can get to Julian Sand with 4 or 5, because today there were times where we brought 6 and it bit us. And that has been something that I think Wink Martindale has defaulted to in the past. And I think something that would be detrimental potentially in next Saturday's game.
Cool little quirk of this week's box score. 3 sacks, all from 3 guys from the state of Maryland. Jayshon Barham got his first sack since the Nebraska game. Derek Moore continues to play well. Trey Williams gets his first sack of the season, the graduate defensive tackle, which it still looks hilarious to see a big old space-eating defensive tackle wearing the number 0. I love that we can see that now. It just looks funny. Like you said, clean day at the office. Outside of that, the first drive and really the final drive, which, again, they happen. You can't take them out of the game, but you made your adjustments. You got a turnover right after tying the football game. Just really impressive stuff. The drive chart today went touchdown, punt, interception, field goal, punt, field goal, turnover on downs, garbage time touchdown. Really, really solid stuff today. From against a good young Maryland quarterback. Bryce was the better of the two true freshman quarterbacks in this game, but both guys around 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds. You could tell that we know this with Bryce, but if Maryland stays the course with that guy, they're going to be very good a couple years down the road, or maybe just a pain in the ass like they have been. AM89 chips in for $5 and says, great show. Hoping for a happy one with you guys next week. Yeah, it could be a party at Blue Lion Fitness. I mean, if they win, we just open the doors and let in all comers, right? I would never invite that sort of riffraff into your building, but hey, I could be talked into whatever. I already promised last week that if Ohio State loses, or if Michigan beats Ohio State, this beard goes. So I made that promise on the fly, and I intend to keep it because I'm a man of my word. So any other thoughts on defense before handing out a game ball?
Safety's got to tighten up a little bit too. I thought Jaden Mangum, not a bad game from him, but just if you're looking for areas to improve, I thought Jaden Mangum was a little out of place. Hillman, as much as I love that he's a physical, come hit you in the mouth guy, there's times where he's out of position and coverage. And there's also times where he loses leverage in run pursuit. And from a team that's playing A football, if you want to get into that A+ category, there are certain boxes you have to check. And at safety today, I thought there were some times where we weren't checking the boxes of being great. We were good, but we weren't great.
All right, I'm going to hand out a game ball. Mine is going to go to, I can't take all of the Maryland guys. I'll pick one. It was cool to see Jay Shombarum get a sack today. Last time he played a game in that stadium, he picked off J.J. McCarthy when he was playing for Maryland. So one more play inside a building that he called home for 2 years. Who gets your game ball, Ryan?
For the first time in a while, I'm copycatting. I think that he needed to kind of break the seal. We hadn't gotten to a sack. They were throwing the ball a lot. I was wondering where the pressure was. And after he got there, I feel like the game kind of slowed down a little bit for the defense. So Jay Barham getting hungry, getting after it. I thought he had a great game.
All right. Well, before we move into our final segment, which is our question segment, you guys have time to get we have a couple starred back here, but the queue is open now. So we'll probably take about 5 of them, depending on how many come in. So keep shooting those in off to the side. Also want to shout out our friends over at Lewis Jewelers. You can visit them over on South Maple Road in Ann Arbor, 300 South Maple Road in Ann Arbor, I should say. Visit them at lewisjewelers.com. They're hop, skip, and a jump away from Blue Lion Fitness. So next week when you come hang out for the victory party, you can zip on over there and get some bling to celebrate it as well. So shout out to Lewis Jewelers, a proud sponsor of the Wolverine and of Michigan Athletics. All right, we're going to move into Q&A time. We're going to go to this one from Your Average Fan who says, obviously, Michigan themselves isn't focused on this, but is this Michigan winning in? Because unless an upset happens, the math isn't there unless you expect them to pass Bama or Maryland. Well, I think, or not Maryland, I'm sorry, Notre Dame. A 10-2 Michigan and a 10-2 Notre Dame. I don't think it's that dissimilar, especially if Oklahoma makes the playoff. Michigan will have the better win. And I think Notre Dame's going to get in. We'll see about all of this stuff is going to sort itself out on the field. So it's not just, we're at 18 now. You got to think of it this way. When the next rankings come out, because of what's happened this weekend, you're probably going to move up to, I would say, 15 or 16. So to me, this is winning in. And controversially, or maybe not so controversial, you hope it's the last game they play until Selection Sunday, because I think that's an even more of a feather in their cap.
I mean, no disrespect, because I understand the thought of going to try to do the math of if you're going to get in the playoff or not. But to me, it's stupid math. What's the point? You you lose this game, you definitely are not going to win, and you're not in. But there has to be at least a chance that you get in if you win this game. In my opinion, it's a very high chance. But what I have to say is if you think that you're going to win the Big Ten championship, which should still be a goal, and if you think you're going to get into this playoff, you have to win this game. And so to me, doing the math of if you could be in or could not be in, it's exciting to talk about the buzz. But like you said, you just have to let this play out and see what happens. To me, it's a distraction from what the most important thing is, which is securing this win. And you're definitely going to the Big Ten championship.
Indeed. So the scenario will be that Michigan needs to beat Ohio State, and then Oregon needs to lose at Washington, because with Oregon's win over USC today, I think they shared 4 common opponents with Michigan and went 4-0, whereas you lost to USC. So that's the tiebreaker there. So if we're going back to Indy for our steak dinners at St. Elmo's, that's what has to happen. 1034 Jose asked, last year's Northwestern win sparked Michigan before Ohio State. With today's performance, do you see a similar late season surge building again? Ryan, I'll give you the first word on that.
I think so. If we feel this encouraged about the team having 2 units, offense and defense, I'm not going to put special teams in that category because I don't think Zavada is where we would like him to be. It would have been nice if he would have went 100% today, especially when he had his one miss from 35, 36 yards. But yes, I do think that this is going to be a surge of positivity. And I also want to make no mistake, I have no doubt that the guys who put the pads on and the winged helmets on Monday through Sunday, all of those guys in there believe that they can win this game. And I would be shocked if I didn't think that they are convinced that they're going to win this game. They don't know anything other than winning this game. And if you say, well, they're going to be huge underdogs, you mean just like last year in an away game with Davis Warren as the quarterback and the offense, what it was last year? So, yeah, I think this team has great momentum, great energy. I would love so much to know, what is the clock like at Ryan Day's house, and how much cumulative hours of sleep do you think he gets between now and noon on Saturday? Because Michigan has lived rent-free for many years now in Ryan Day's head. And I feel like the momentum train is rolling as many cars as it can in the positive direction for the team that is this year's Michigan team. And that's amazing going into this last game.
It is amazing. And I do a bit of a topic change here for a sec. We do have a bit of an update on Ernest Hausman, who has weighed in on Twitter or X, whatever you call it these days. He says, I've never left. Hashtag GoBlue, hashtag the game. Now, we don't know why he missed the game. All the BTN broadcasts said is that it was not injury related. So it would be awesome to have him back on the field next week. Certainly a game you could have afforded to not have him out there this week. But Ernest Hausman says he's never left. GoBlue the game. He also dropped another one that said the November remembers, hashtag the game. So at least in the here and now, he seems like we'll see. We'll get some clarification on what's going on there. This is from Zion Schaub for $2. He says, if last year's team beat Ohio, any team can. LFG. Yeah, I mean, no matter what you've seen from the team, no matter what you think ails them, what stresses you out about them, if they find a way to win this game on Saturday, it is going to be far less shocking than what happened last year. So, and that's part of the head games too, is that all of the pressure's on Ohio State. I mean, Michigan at this point, when you put this, don't get me wrong, more often than not, the expectation is, beat your rivals, get to the college football playoff. Those are the expectations now. But I feel like this team hit its magic number today in terms of, you got to 9 wins. I think that's a really good baseline, and you have a chance for more. But all of the pressure All of it. Yeah, this is a winning in game for you next weekend, but all of the pressure is on Ohio State. And they let one slip away that, whether they like it or not, at least in our eyes, taints how they finished last season. And look at this too. They're already crossing out the M's and forgetting them. Stadium, the M is crossed out. Information, not crossed out. So it's a tradition like any other. I choose to believe they forget M's to rage bait people, but yeah, I mean, I know it's a Maryland post-game show, but the people are lathered up and want to talk about Ohio State. So Ryan, in the here and now, how do you feel about this matchup going into Saturday?
How long we got?
As long as you take us to the morning, I'll put a pot of coffee on.
Listen, so I'm going to come at you a little bit just because I heard you even say, like, we've got a shot. We've got a chance. When did we become the desperate team? Now, I understand how the season has played out and that Ohio State has looked like a juggernaut, but I'd like to rewind a little bit. Ohio State's a juggernaut. Why? Because they've held Illinois to 16 points, because they held Texas and Arch Manning in his debut in an away game to 7, because they beat Purdue. They held Purdue. It was a 30-14 game or something. The Penn State was 30-14. Purdue, they handled decently, but Ohio State, you have a defense that everybody keeps saying, oh, they have a defense. Matt Patricia this year, it's a defense. Their defense holds teams that don't score 20 points under 20 points. So where's my wow factor there? I'm missing my wow factor there. They have some tremendous athletes. They've had tremendous athletes back when they had Jim Knowles. That doesn't mean that the defense is fixed. The defense being fixed because they hold bad offenses to no offense does not impress me. And then you go to the offensive side of the ball, and their talent is outstanding. Don't get me wrong. They have the best receiver room, undoubtedly, and they have for the while. Julian Sand is playing out of his mind. But you have an offense that's averaging 30 points against teams and defenses that give up 30 points. So where's the wow? What's supposed to impress me about any of those teams that you've beaten and the manner in which you beat them in? Michigan, by comparison, has gone down into the mud. Michigan has been down in games. Michigan's had the shit kicked out of them in games. Michigan has battled for a win in Northwestern in Wrigley Field. Michigan has had to come back. Michigan has had to come back from turnovers and resolve turnovers as a defense. Ohio State is untested. Ohio State has no dents on the ride for 13 games. They have a couple guys that are injured, just like Michigan. But Ohio State doesn't know what their own blood tastes like. And I have no doubt that you will not come to Ann Arbor and not leave knowing what the taste of your blood is in your mouth, whether you get the W or not. So I get a little ruffled, and I'm puffing my chest out that there's a narrative that Michigan is the desperate team scrambling for a win. Bullshit. You got to come in here and take it. And that's how I see it.
I was just throwing the chum in the water, just waiting for the former player to step up and take it. How do we get you in front of that team this week? That's a hell of a pep talk. But you're right. I mean, the pressure is Michigan is regardless of how you feel the two teams have played since Michigan beat them last year. Michigan is operating out of a place of strength in this rivalry because even they've got the 4 straight years of wins. They've got the mental advantage. They've got the home game. They've got the grit, the battle tested. They're more battle tested. That Ohio State has handled its business this year. But you're right. I mean, you haven't really looked at your phone, whether you're checking their score or you tune into a game. I can't really say you've checked your phone and ever raised an eyebrow at them being tested this year. And I'm sorry, with the way the Big Ten turned out, that schedule is ass. The Penn State game was supposed to be a test for you. They died a month before that. The Washington game, they didn't play very well. Minnesota stinks. Illinois was incredibly overrated. High floor, but incredibly overrated. Wisconsin stinks. Purdue stinks. UCLA is terrible. Rutgers is Rutgers. I'm not going to take the Texas win away from them, but that was 3 months ago. So that's an important way to frame where we start this week is that, I think a lot of people are hoping for the best. I think when you look at what's beaten this Ohio State team over the last few years, Michigan has that. It's got the run game. It's got the stout defense. It's got the disruptive defensive line. Now, they don't have 2 first-rounders that completely won you the game like last year, but you don't have to go into a shell in this game with your offense. In fact, you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to probably cut your freshman quarterback loose a little bit. It's all hands on deck now. And Michigan just needs to prepare and let its guys play. And Ohio State's the one that brings the baggage to Ann Arbor. And they've proven this. And this is 4 years of data. This isn't in the vacuum of a game. This isn't in the vacuum of a season. They've proven now 4 years in a row that when you get them into a 4-quarter game, they fold. And if Michigan can get them into a 4-quarter game, I guarantee they will fold again. So that's neither here nor there. This Michigan team hasn't flinched this year. And if it finds itself down a score against Ohio State, it's not going to flinch. If it finds itself, with a chance to pull off the upset late in the game, it's not going to flinch. And there are a lot of things that ail them and I have questions about, but that's not one of them. So we'll go back to taking a few more questions here, unless you have any response to that. But I thought we went back in the locker room there for a second a couple minutes ago.
I'm sweating. I'm good. I just I can't handle the narrative of we are the desperate Michigan, hoping that we don't get embarrassed on the national stage. I'm not trying to hear that noise. They have to come in here and take it. I leave it there.
I love it. Let's go back to talking this game, or the game. Benjamin wants to know, Ryan, what are your thoughts on our defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line? Obviously, we miss Mason and KG, but I don't think OSU's rushing attack is the same without Henderson and Judkins. I would agree with that, by the way.
I would agree with that. And I think, to me, that's going to be one of the biggest matchups that I'm looking for, because I've mentioned on the podcast before that the defensive tackle position hasn't gotten to where they are ever operating at a great capacity, high efficiency. They're in the TFL column, they're in the sack column. They do play their game and they execute the defense, but they don't make any plays. They don't impact the game. So it'll be interesting to see what that matchup is like. But I will say that I like our 4-man pass rush against their pass protection. As I've watched a few of their games, I don't think we need exotic pressures to get to Sayin. I think Sayin we can keep cover down for a good amount of time, give Jayshawn Barham and some of the guys up front some opportunities to get free and win their one-on-one matchups, and see what happens if Julian Sayin has to go through some progressions versus just tear you apart in fire zones. So I think our defensive line actually matches up pretty well, but it is unfortunate that we don't have the same what I would say like the overmatch like we did back when we had Mason and KG.
Sorry. Welch Snack asked, what will they do with Link presumably back? I think you got to run out the guys out there that you have. And I don't know that he's presumably back. It really was just a report that he's not out the rest of the season. I don't think at this stage you can afford to make any changes. If you're the 5 that you have out there is completely healthy, those are the soldiers that you send into battle this week. So I think it will be Frazier and El Hadi and Crippen and Guarnera and Sprague on Saturday. And I don't think there's any reason to change that at all. Another one for you, Ryan, from J.R. Morris. Says, Ryan, do you think Wink will put the best 4 defensive linemen out there instead of rotating every other play?
I think you'll see some more consistency. I think what you'll probably see is a little bit different rotation versus the packages that they go with. If you watch Ohio State, the one thing that I feel like you can get a beat on, at least from what they've shown so far, is they're pretty obvious when they want to run the ball. They have 2 tight ends in, they're in 12 personnel. The receivers, are out wide. They're not hiding or disguising that they're trying to run the ball. And by that same token, if they're trying to pass the ball, the formation kind of suggests it, the back depth. There's certain things that give away that they want to pass the ball. So I think that our 4 best pass rushers being on the field and them being able to execute games. it goes past the average fan. I don't mean to insult anybody, but you don't understand what it's like when you get to game 12 versus game 1 and you've been in the trenches with these guys. Me and Mike Martin, back when we used to play, Madison used to give us a base call, and then we used to decide what gap, what rush lane. We used to come up with all that on the fly because he trusted us that we would understand that we can't leave a gap open. We can't have no contain. The 4 of us got to figure this out. We can go wherever we want as long as everything's assigned. And so I got to believe they're kind of in that same zone with Barham and Derek Moore and some of those guys. So I think it's essential for us to be successful against Ohio State that we can find a way to pressure with 4, find a way to pressure with 5, and run games. And so Wink having the right personnel in the game is crucial, just like every other decision probably will be. But yes, I think he will put the 4 best D linemen out there, pending situation, pending personnel.
Yeah, and it's not, I know the rally group thing has kind of been a point of contention, and it's one of the things that drive me the craziest about Wink Martindale is, and it's position coaches too. They're throwing a lot of guys out there. You know, Michigan will go on a long touchdown drive, and then all of a sudden your edge rushers are Nate Marshall and Dominic Nichols. I think you're going to see less of that next week, and I would be surprised if you went on a long scoring drive, keeping the OSU offense on the field, and all of a sudden, you know, Caleb Anderson's in at cornerback. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that, if that at all. I think you got to roll with your best, and they know that too. Just trying to get as many guys ready as possible. So we have time for, I'm going to take this one, and that might be it. So last call for anyone in the chat who wants to get on with a question. Span Markiola 7260 says, why would Michigan go to the championship over Oregon and Indiana? Well, I don't think they're going to. Indiana has a game against Purdue, I think on Friday. They're going to win that game. They'll be 12-0. They're in. The scenario for Michigan to get in would be for Oregon to lose at Washington. And Michigan has to beat Ohio State. Otherwise, Michigan would be 10-2. Oregon would be 11-1, and they would be heading to Indianapolis to defend their Big Ten championship. So those are the scenarios in play.
Really? Just out of curiosity, because the conference record, we would have 1 loss each.
Right.
Oregon's loss is to Indiana. So they're going to let Oregon go play Indiana heads up again, and they already had a heads up when Michigan's only loss in the Big Ten was to USC.
That would be the tiebreaker, because I think it goes to the third tiebreaker where, because Michigan and Oregon didn't play, they have the same conference record, obviously. And I think the third tiebreaker 3 on there is your record against like opponents. Michigan and Oregon have 4 of them this year. Oregon went 4-0. Michigan goes 3-1 because of the USC game. So that USC game wind up kind of screwing them over in that regard. So those are the scenarios for next week. Okay. I think that's going to do for us. Any other, I hate to ask for another pep talk again, but I just want to know, like, where is your head at heading into Saturday, and how did you get what you wanted to see out of this Maryland game?
I did get what I wanted to see. And as you know, and as you've maybe been listening, I have some pretty high expectations, but the momentum in the right direction, polished football, physical, disciplined football that I think is our brand. To me, this isn't going to be the pep talk, but just from an analytical standpoint, the brand of Ohio State football, we call the finesse. They've gotten better, but the finesse, the basketball on grass, the playing in space, that style of football versus 2 tight ends, fullback. We push you, you push us. We see who wins. That brand of football. I feel like it's a clash of the brands. And when Michigan wins against Ohio State, to me, it just shows you that no matter how good the Ferrari finesse brand gets, when the diesel gets going, you can't stop it. And to me, I wanted to at least have this season and this year be a nice showing of the 2 brands. And I didn't think we were going to get there based on performances, even more recently with our offense. And who knows, they might come out and lay a stinker, and that's totally possible. But I think they will do better than they have. And I think they will have a performance that's more similar to this one, and they'll play at a higher capacity than they have earlier in the season, as they should. So I am excited about the game, and I'm excited about what may happen. With all thoughts of anything outcome could happen. The only thing I think won't happen is I don't think Michigan will go belt to ass on Ohio State. I don't think that'll happen. But other than that, anything could happen.
I'm thinking if Michigan wins Saturday, it's going to have to be maybe not a meat grinder to the extent of last year's game was, but that might be a game that's played in the high teens or low 20s. Does that sound right to you? Oh, you muted yourself.
Sorry. I see this game not exceeding 24 points on either side. I definitely don't see either team breaking 30. I think this is going to be a game 23-20. It might be a last possession wins, and that's why I say Lee Corso style, not so fast with this desperation thing, because Ohio State has had how many game-winning drives this season? How many Julian Sand fourth quarter comebacks have been led? 0 for the people listening on audio. I got my hand up. So that's why
no fingers up, by the way.
That's why I feel like just wait and see what happens. I'm not talking shit, but I also am not going to just assume that a juggernaut's coming to Ann Arbor to slay. That's not happening either.
This is what, after that USC loss, this is what you hoped for. They would win 5 games in a row. All of their goals were still in front of them, and that they had a chance to punch a playoff ticket on their home field the last week of the regular season against a team that you've won 4 years in a row. There's no game pick here yet. I'll say I picked them to go 10-2 this year. I thought maybe they would have shown the gear they showed Saturday before this game against Ohio State, but they showed it the game before Ohio State. So we know it's there. We know what they're capable of. And we know that on this, most thankful of weeks, the feast week, they call it for college football, a lot of great, or college basketball, a lot of great college football and pro football this week as well. And Michigan fans, your team is at the center of the universe when it comes to that. People are across the country. Usually Michigan gets hate watched more than anyone else. I think Saturday, Michigan is going to play a game against Ohio State where the world will be watching to see if Ryan Day and the Buckeyes piss down their leg again, as they have the last 4 years. And that's the only stage you could possibly have asked for, and to operate out of a place of strength in as well. So we'll see. It's that time. It's the week. We will, of course, be live from Blue Lion Fitness about probably an hour or so after the game, hopefully in a celebratory fashion. Ryan and I don't know anything else in terms of doing post games after the Ohio State game and having it not be celebratory. So that's the manifestation here. So I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your Saturday night. We were a little bit later tonight, of course, but glad that you were here. Also to the folks who listen after the fact, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Be sure to like this video if you're watching the YouTube version. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for what is going to be a very busy week. Ohio State on tap. Michigan basketball is going to play 3 games this upcoming week. You're going to be locked in over on the Wolverine YouTube channel and also at thewolverine.com, where you can join for $1, which gets you an entire year access to The Athletic for your first week, $1 for your first week. So take advantage of that, folks. We'd love to have you on. Now is the perfect time to hop on. So for Ryan Van Bergen, for our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broome. Michigan is 9-2 and on to the game. We will talk to you again next week.